You're listening to Bold Adulting, your guide to courage in the face of self-doubt.
I'm really excited to be bringing you the recording from the keynote speech that I gave to the San Diego chapter of the Society of Women Engineers during this summer. Now, I am going to include most of this interview relatively uncut, some silences cut out, little bits like that, and I've definitely done my best to improve the sound quality, but you'll still hear some of the clinking because the audience was actually eating a delicious meal during it. And I did do some noise removal, so there were some syllables that may have gotten lost because they were interpreted as noise, but I really want to get this out to you and overcome my own perfectionism. There are also a few visual aspects of the presentation that you won't see in this, so I do a fist pump, and that is how part of one of the stories that I tell actually ends, so you might kind of miss out on that. But I do also have video of the event, and it's currently in the editing stage. I want to cut it so that it's really short, digestible clips, and so that will be available as well. You'll know if it's currently available because if you go into the show notes, you'll see that there'll be a link there. There's also a part where I start reading out different experiences. It starts off with I had a low GPA, and there's actually several parts that are like this, and the audience can tell based on the visuals that I am reading from quotes that people have given me, but that's not quite as obvious from this, so it's not the case that all those things apply to me, but those are actual quotes that were given to me. I also cut out a little segment about where I actually forgot something that I was going to say, and I cut it out not because I want to hide the fact that I did forget, just a couple of my lines, but because as I was trying to look at my paper to see what I had forgotten, there was quite a bit of rustling. And I also made a quip there about the fact that I hadn't been worried about the fact that, I might actually forget something, because if I do, it's just an example of the very failure that I'm trying to destigmatize. The last thing that might not be obvious is there's a portion in which I say that I admitted something. What I'm showing there is the fact that for about a year, I was doing electrolysis to remove hair from my chin and neck, and that plays in heavily into my experience of my own body image journey and how I help other people with it as well. So that's everything I wanted to tell you. Thank you so much again for listening.
Masha is the founder of BoldAdulting.com, where she helps amazing people courageously tackle what life throws at them. Even when they're afraid, they have no idea what they're doing. Please join me in welcoming Masha Eastman.
Thank you so much for having me. I want you to take a moment to imagine a situation in which it would be helpful to have more confidence than you already have. Keep that in mind. They say practice makes perfect. That would explain why I am really good at failing. Okay, so I'll start by telling you what I did right. That is standard operating procedure for when we introduce ourselves, right? I was kind of a star student in undergrad. I won some awards. And I did get into one of the top-rated PhD programs in the United States, UCSD Biology. Now that story involves failure too, but we'll get to that. I also lost 100 pounds. And way after I lost the weight, I finally learned how to feel good about my body. And that is a huge deal. I also managed to find an amazing partner. And after only 3 OkCupid dates, I did it. So I've done some good stuff. But I'm not here to talk about that. We talk enough about our accomplishments. They're on our resumes. They're what we lead with when we introduce ourselves. We feel we have to rack up our accomplishments, and they have to be linear and constant too. Have a gap in your achievement record? Hide it. We hide so much. Have some flab visible through your clothes? It's okay. Grab your space. See some imperfections in your skin that you don't see in the Photoshop models whose job it is to look that good? They sell concealer for that. Feel like you forgot practically everything you learned in undergrad, and your grad school lab is dropping jargon like you're supposed to remember it all? Pretend, pretend, pretend. Don't ask questions. Even if it means risking breaking some monstrously expensive lab equipment. It's worth it to protect your dignity, right? And when you're looking for jobs, God forbid they know that you're an imperfect human, or that you took a circuitous route to get where you are. Get those employment gaps, mental illnesses, and the retail jobs you work to support yourself out of here. So, I told you we're here to talk about my failures. Well, so I told you I lost 100 pounds. Yay me! But before I lost that weight, I failed repeatedly at losing weight. Or if I did, the weight just came back. I think this time it's going to stick. But if I'm being totally honest, I have regained about 30 pounds. And I do sometimes fail at resisting the urge to eat, let's say a whole package of delicious cookies, and then maybe a second one. Before I met my husband, I asked out 5 people who I had crushes on. All of them said no. All of them. I can tell you, the 5th rejection is a lot easier to take than the first one. So how else have I failed? I wanted to go to UCSD for college for as long as I can remember. But I didn't get into UCSD for undergrad. I also didn't get into UCSD for grad school, at least the first time I applied. I had to apply to grad school 2 years in a row. Can you guess why? I failed to get in. Over the course of 2 years, I applied to 14 PhD programs. Out of those 14 programs, I got into 3. Those of you good with percentages will know that that's about a 20% success rate, or as I like to call it, an 80% failure rate. I volunteered for a year in a research lab to finally convince UCSD biology to take me. And there's another way you could say that I failed recently. When you start a PhD program, you assume you're going to stay in it until you get that degree. Now, technically, once you've fulfilled a certain chunk of the requirements, you often can leave that program with a master's. And unlike most masters, you got paid to do it. That means no extra student debt. But the program doesn't even really talk about that. It's just buried in the handbook. So if deciding to leave a PhD program with a master's is failing, I recently decided to fail again. But I'm really excited about this particular failure. There's 3 reasons. 1, grad school is so deeply stressful. I failed at staving off the anxiety and depression that so many grad students succumb to. 2, I fail at enjoying moving cells and liquids around between petri dishes and test tubes. Sorry, I just find it incredibly boring. And that is how I spent most of my days for 3 years. 3, I failed to resist talking about hard stuff like this, the struggles that we go through. And it's hard to make time for that when you're supposed to be spending, 60 hours a week moving cells around and reading literature on an incredibly narrow topic. A couple years ago, I reunited with my high school best friend, who, by the way, made the necklace that several of you complimented me on. 2 projects came out of our renewed friendship. A community social justice organization called Quirks Who Care, and BoldAdulting, where I help people with their confidence issues and start conversations about the struggles we have that we just don't talk enough about. I think failure is one of these issues that we need to talk about. Online, I'm the genetics gal. Now, the name isn't too misleading. I do teach the public about science, mostly genetics. But because stress is an issue that affects scientists so tremendously, I also do a lot of real talk. I write about, make videos and podcasts about, and run workshops about the stresses that scientists and engineers go through. I think many of these stresses come from trying to hide our failures. So I'm trying to get them out into the open. Now, when you fail as much as I have, you have to figure out how to celebrate the small wins. How have I been doing that? I celebrate my small wins with a fist pump. Let me show you. I ran a workshop about grad school stress, and people said it was really helpful. I submitted a job application. I got rejected from a job that I really thought I was going to get. Well, instead of melting into a puddle of tears, I cried. But I put on my running shoes and I ran through the tears. Now, I've told you a lot about my failures, and I'm telling you that every brilliant, accomplished person you know or have heard about has failed repeatedly. Hiring managers don't see those failures on the resumes and CVs that cross their desks. But maybe that'll change. At UCSD, there's a neuroscience professor named Brad Wojtek. If you want to talk about zombie brains, he is the dude to talk to. And if you want to talk about failure, he's also your man. On Brad Wojtek's CV, he has a section listing his failures and rejections. Can you guess how many failures and rejections Brad Wojtek has? 35. 35 failures. Now, I played around with making a failure section for my CV, and I didn't get close to 35. I guess Brad Wojtek is way better at failing than I am. But it's okay. I believe in myself. I know I have plenty of failure ahead of me. One thing I don't fail at anymore is failing. So what do I mean by that? Now, when something I try doesn't work out, I can see the bright side in it. You know how sometimes you're on a really terrible date, and you get past the feeling that this is a colossal waste of time, and you start to think, I'm going to get a good story out of this. Now, when I do something and it fails, I think, I can write about this. I can use this to bolster the confidence of the students I TA and the interns I mentor. I can talk to the Society of Women Engineers about this. But I have to admit, it's not always that easy. When things I try don't succeed, I still sometimes get this feeling like, why didn't it work out this time? I can't always immediately dig deep inside myself and feel gratitude for the learning opportunity. Hey, I guess that means I'm still failing. Okay, I want you to again imagine that situation where you could use some extra confidence. Being an adult is hard. It's even harder if you work in STEM or are trying to. Why? Things don't always work out the way we expected. Prototypes fail all the time. The product we build doesn't always look the way we expected it to based on the blueprint. When things you tried don't succeed over and over, it's easy to start questioning your choices. Did I pick the right major? Would I have been happier at that other college? Is grad school even for me? Would I have been better off if I had joined that other lab? Did I make a mistake by moving across the country and breaking up with Leslie to take this job? Have I gotten no responses back to all the job applications I've sent out because I'm doing something wrong? Or because I am wrong? I bet you've been questioning your self-worth longer than you even realized. Whether you excelled or struggled in your classes, you may have never felt good enough. And even if you felt competent for the level that you're currently at, you may have been scared of the next step because you haven't been there. You haven't done that next step. And it's not just our careers that stress us out. Sometimes we're hit with a divorce or a death or something else that one of you may be dealing with that I can't even imagine. And when that happens, we can feel like we're supposed to keep carrying on with our work as though nothing happened. Those thoughts you have, concerns about yourself, the feelings that you're not good enough, you're not alone. You're not the only one who has those thoughts. Do any of these sound familiar? Am I smart enough for these tough classes? Am I getting enough done? Are my grades good enough? Is my boss happy with me? Does my collaborator feel like I'm doing enough? Does the amount of vacation time I need to decompress and be with my family mean that I'm not committed to my career? Is everyone judging me all the time? Or is that just my social anxiety flaring up again? I'm telling you, there's no room for that kind of constant self-questioning and anxiety in a content life. Now, let's talk about mental health. You don't have to raise your hand when I ask these questions, but I cannot wait until there's no stigma. Who in this room has anxiety? Who has depression? Whose body has flaws that they're always trying to hide? Whose brain chemicals mess with their ability to get things done on the day-to-day? And what about those other mental illnesses? We're finally getting comfortable as a society talking about anxiety and depression. But if you have one of those less fashionable mental illnesses, how does that affect your ability to feel confident being yourself? Let's talk about transitions. Time passes fast. You finally start to figure out what you're doing at one step, even if you don't realize you've started to know what you're doing. And already it's time for the next one, and you don't feel ready for it. And your life looks nothing like what you thought it was supposed to. It's probably just you, right? Everyone else knows exactly what they're doing. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about imposter syndrome. Now, I've been up here talking uninterrupted long enough. The studies show that if you participate, you're going to come away remembering more of this. And I know this group will want to see my sources. So not everyone is comfortable making their voice heard. So I'm going to get you all warmed up. So let's start. Raise your hand if you're at the sweet banquet. Raise it high. Anyone here not at the sweet banquet? Now raise your hand high if you've met at least one awesome person here today. And side note, follow back up with them. Even if it's a year later and you fish their business card out of the bottom of your purse, follow back up. Now that I have you warmed up, I'm going to take a survey. Raise your hand high if you know what the word imposter syndrome means. Imposter syndrome is the feeling that you're not good enough for the job that you have or for the one that you want, or for the community that you're trying to befriend, or the hard classes that you're taking. People with imposter syndrome can live in fear that they're going to be discovered as unprepared, as a fraud, as an imposter. Now, I dressed up as imposter syndrome for Halloween because I'm a little obsessed with imposter syndrome. And the person who comes up afterwards and tells me the best interpretation of what you think my Halloween costume means, how this stands for imposter syndrome, will win this really amazing science coloring book by my friend and collaborator, Dr. Thomayi Dion, the science mom. Now, regardless of whether or not you already knew what imposter syndrome was, raise your hand high if now that you've seen the definition, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Look around. Imposter syndrome is incredibly common among high-achieving people. We think our successes are due to luck. We don't feel good enough. We think everyone else is so much more prepared than we are. Why does it matter? If you're constantly worrying about whether you're good enough, that is a huge added stressor. Do you need more stress in your life? I know I don't. And if you don't know if you're good enough, you might not take those harder classes, apply for the opportunities, the promotions, and the jobs that you need to get where you want to go. And you might not reach out to the people who can make the whole process less lonely. And all that time and the resources that you're spending on wondering whether you're good enough could be spent working on your career, or relaxing, or hanging out with friends and family. We can all find reasons that we're not good enough. I had a low GPA. I started grad school with no publications. I'm halfway through grad school and I still have no publications. My career goals are different than my peers. I don't even know what my career goals are. I'm going to have kids and I have no idea if I'm going to return to engineering after. I have a different background. Can I succeed and contribute to the field of engineering if I didn't even major in it? English isn't my first language. I'm quiet and introverted. How am I supposed to go out and meet people at big networking events if it feels so unnatural? I'm a hodgepodge of different skills that don't even seem like they make sense together. Or the opposite. Sure, I know how to do really well the one thing that I focused on, but that's the only thing that I know how to do. My depression makes it really hard to stay motivated for what I need to do on a day-to-day. And what if you feel you forgot basically everything you learned in undergrad? What if people find out? I'm telling you that most people will respond to the confession, I forgot what I learned in undergrad, with, me too. What I'm telling you is that science and engineering are hard. The way feedback is given in academia and in life is hard. When you don't feel good enough, it's because what you're doing is hard. Now, I'm going to take some of my own advice and not focus disproportionately on the negative. There are amazing things about being in science and engineering. Scientists and engineers work on the edge of discovery. Sometimes you figure something out, and you are the only person in the world who knows that. And you can sit with that knowledge, and you can share it. I was trained as a geneticist. I remember when I discovered a couple of spots on chromosomes that help cells divide correctly. That was a beautiful feeling. I bet it'll feel beautiful for you too when you solve a problem that other people didn't even know existed, or a problem that none of the other people who had tried to solve it before could, until you. And for those of you who like to communicate to other people, you have knowledge that others want to have. You can share it with them. So there are lots of great things about being in STEM. But to get through it with our confidence intact, we have to be gentle with ourselves, and we have to find support. You have to remind yourself you're not behind, you're on your own path. You have to believe in yourself, and you have to move yourself closer towards the direction that you want your life to go. Now, I'm not just here to tell you the very depressing fact that there is a crisis of confidence among even the most hardworking, passionate, creative people, especially among the most hardworking, brilliant, passionate people. We're going to talk solutions. Now, some of these solutions will work for you, and it's up to you to figure out which. And believe me, if you keep trying, you will. A grad student I trained said, the one thing we forget to be critical of is our own ability to assess ourselves. So be skeptical and test your own assumptions about your self-worth. Don't ignore or dismiss your positive traits and experiences. Don't compare your insides to other people's outsides. You know all the times you kept quiet and what was going on inside your brain, and you only hear other people talk when they have something to say. But you have no idea all the times and reasons that they kept quiet. And by the way, they have no idea all the times you're keeping quiet too. Think about the positives, the good things that came out of the ways in which you failed, or the things you struggled with. For example, I did not get into grad school the first time I applied, and so much good has come out of that. Ask questions. Even if you're afraid that you're going to show the gaps in your knowledge, someone in the room may have a solution for you. And when the questions are directed at you, don't be afraid to say, I don't know. And you can level it up by saying, as I was trained at the Humboldt orientation program, I don't know, but I'll find out. If you know you want something, be persistent. If you identify someone who is doing something amazing, don't be afraid to reach out to them. I was really nervous before I walked up to Bill Nye on the dance floor and thanked him for everything he's done for us. And I got a hug and a selfie out of it. And when you reach out to someone and they don't get back to you, don't assume you did something wrong by reaching out. Remind yourself that they're busy, you have lots of unread messages in your inbox as well, and politely reach back out. And follow the lead of my cat, Courage, the confidence cat, and work really hard to keep putting yourself out in new situations, even if your past experiences make that a struggle. Figure out what are the things that will help you feel good in the moments that are terrible. When you're struggling, that's not the time to try to figure out how to make yourself feel better. When you're having bad thoughts, that tends to just lead to more bad thoughts. So for example, I basically always carry around bubbles and a coloring book. And dancing to Uptown Funk in the bathroom totally got me through the several weeks right after I decided to leave grad school. And if you forgot to make a list for yourself and you're struggling, there's a really amazing handout that you can find online by searching "Everything is awful and I'm not okay." And it gives you suggestions of how to make yourself feel better when it feels like everything is awful and I'm not okay. I want to implore you that if there's something you don't like about your body and you want to change it, please do so in a way that is safe and sustainable. And don't assume that because you change your body, that you're going to feel good about yourself. Losing weight did not make me feel good about myself. So while you're working on changing your body, if you decide to work on changing your body, work on your body image too. And if there's something about yourself that you're always trying to hide or always trying to change, take a moment to ask yourself, how do I feel about this? Do I want to change? I had never thought about that until 2 days ago when I admitted this to someone and they asked me that. How do I feel about myself? Remind yourself over and over, and remind other people too. I'm imperfect, but I'm trying my best. The bad thoughts will come, the insecurities, expect them. Don't assume that that is the moment to listen to those thoughts. Follow the principles of mindfulness and understand that there are some thoughts you do not need to follow. When those bad thoughts come, and they will, tell yourself, I'm imperfect, but I'm trying my best. And please, be open to changing your path to find happiness, even if you worked really, really hard to get where you are. I made this presentation based on direct quotes from grad students and postdocs. If it spoke to you, it's because what you're feeling is incredibly common. It is not a sign that you're not good enough. If you want to continue the conversation, please get in touch. And I want to leave you with one takeaway. The person sitting next to me also has no idea what they're doing. I should talk to them so we can figure it out together. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Bold Adulting. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a 5-star review and rating on iTunes, even if that's not how you listen to the show. Want to leave a review but don't know how? Email Masha at BoldAdulting.com and I'll help you out. Note that my name is spelled Masha. There's no R in there. You can find Bold Adulting on social media and also find my personal account at The Genetics Gal. Find lots of resources at BoldAdulting.com, including a free fill-in-the-blanks 7-step guide to confidently reach out to people. There you can meet our mascot, Courage the Confidence Cat, who is on his own journey of overcoming trauma to live a peaceful and content life. You can also learn about hiring me as your Quirky Qonfidence Qoach, or for a speaking engagement. You can also fill out a scholarship application form, as I do offer a limited number of free or reduced price sessions every year. Finally, if you want to contribute but don't have much time and maybe don't even know how you can help, ask me about Bold Adulting micro internships. And now the Bold Adulting jingle, written and performed by my spouse, Matt Evepak. Thank you for listening.